The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. Welcome back to the Berean Pursuit. This is week 49, day 4. Today we're reading from Nehemiah chapters 4 through 6, Psalm 98, and Revelation chapter 6. Last time in Nehemiah, we began the book and we saw how Nehemiah learned that the walls of Jerusalem were still in a state of non-existence. Essentially, they had been burned and torn down by the Babylonians many years before and were still in that state. There were no walls, and that really concerned Nehemiah. And he realized he was somebody who could lead the rebuilding effort if he could get permission to go. And he did get permission from the king. He was the cupbearer to the king, evidently well respected by the king. And so he was sent to be the governor of Jerusalem. And he went there and spied out the area at night to see what needed to be done. And then the next day, he got everybody together, told them the obvious problem that they already knew about, that the walls were in disrepair, and said, we need to rebuild, and told them about how God had been with him to get permission from the king. And they were happy that said, let's do it. Let's rebuild. And so we had all these names of different people who were busy rebuilding, whether it's a big section or just the part in front of their house, but they were out there working hard. And so today we're going to see them continue this building, but with some discouragement that they have to deal with. But let's go ahead and get into the reading in Nehemiah chapters 4 through 6. Now when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, he was furious and filled with indignation. He ridiculed the Jews before his associates and the army of Samaria, saying, "What are these feeble Jews doing? Can they restore the wall by themselves? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they complete it in a day? Can they bring these burnt stones back to life from the mounds of rubble?" Then Tobiah the Ammonite, who was beside him, said, "If even a fox were to climb up on what they are building, it would break down their wall of stones. Hear us, O God, for we are despised. Turn their scorn back upon their own heads, and let them be taken as plunder to a land of captivity. Do not cover up their iniquity, or let their sin be blotted out from your sight, for they have provoked the builders." So we rebuilt the wall until all of it was joined together up to half its height, for the people had a mind to work. When Sanballat and Tobiah, together with the Arabs, Ammonites, and Ashdodites, heard that the repair to the walls of Jerusalem was progressing and that the gaps were being closed, they were furious, and all of them conspired to come and fight against Jerusalem and create a hindrance. So we prayed to our God and posted a guard against them day and night. Meanwhile, the people of Judah said, "The strength of the laborer fails, and there is so much rubble that we will never be able to rebuild the wall." And our enemies said, "Before they know or see a thing, we will come into their midst, kill them, and put an end to the work." At that time, the Jews who lived nearby came and told us 10 times over, "Wherever you turn, they will attack us." So I stationed men behind the lowest sections of the wall at the vulnerable areas. I stationed them by families with their swords, spears, and bows. After I had made an inspection, I stood up and said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, "Do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome, and fight for your brothers, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your homes." When our enemies heard that we were aware of their scheme and that God had frustrated it, each of us returned to his own work on the wall. And from that day on, half of my servants did the work, while the other half held spears, shields, bows, and armor. The officers stationed themselves behind all the people of Judah who were rebuilding the wall. The laborers who carried materials worked with one hand and held a weapon with the other. And each of the builders worked with his sword strapped at his side, but the trumpeter stayed beside me. Then I said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, "The work is great and extensive, and we are spread out far from one another along the wall. Wherever you hear the sound of the horn, rally to us there. Our God will fight for us." So we continued the work, while half of the men held spears from the break of dawn until the stars came out. At that time I also said to the people, "Let every man and his servant spend the night inside Jerusalem so that they can stand guard by night and work by day." So neither I nor my brothers nor my servants nor the guards with me changed out of our clothes. Each carried his weapon, even to go for water. About that time there was a great outcry from the people and their wives against their fellow Jews. Some were saying, "We and our sons and daughters are numerous. We must get grain in order to eat and stay alive." Others were saying, "We are mortgaging our fields, our vineyards, and our homes to get grain during the famine." Still others were saying, "We have borrowed money to pay the king's tax on our fields and vineyards. We and our children are just like our countrymen and their children, yet we are subjecting our sons and daughters to slavery. Some of our daughters are already enslaved, but we are powerless to redeem them because our fields and vineyards belong to others." When I heard their outcry and these complaints, I became extremely angry, and after serious thought, I rebuked the nobles and officials, saying, "You are exacting usury from your own brothers." So I called a large assembly against them and said, "We have done our best to buy back our Jewish brothers who were sold to foreigners, but now you are selling your own brothers, that they may be sold back to us." But they remained silent, for they could find nothing to say. So I continued, "What you are doing is not right. Shouldn't you walk in the fear of our God to avoid the reproach of our foreign enemies? I, as well as my brothers and my servants, have been lending the people money and grain. Please, let us stop this usury. Please restore to them immediately their fields, vineyards, olive groves, and houses, along with the percentage of the money, grain, new wine, and oil that you have been assessing them." "We will restore it," they replied, "and will require nothing more from them. We will do as you say." So I summoned the priests and required of the nobles and officials an oath that they would do what they had promised. I also shook out the folds of my robe and said, "May God likewise shake out of his house and possession every man who does not keep this promise. May such a man be shaken out and have nothing." The whole assembly said, "Amen," and they praised the Lord, and the people did as they had promised. Furthermore, from the day King Artaxerxes appointed me to be their governor in the land of Judah, from his 20th year until his 32nd year, 12 years total, neither I nor my brothers ate the food allotted to the governor. The governors before me had heavily burdened the people, taking from them bread and wine, plus 40 shekels of silver. Their servants also oppressed the people, but I did not do this because of my fear of God. Instead, I devoted myself to the construction of the wall, and all my servants were gathered there for the work. We did not acquire any land. There were 150 Jews and officials at my table, besides the guests from the surrounding nations. Each day 1 ox, 6 choice sheep, and some fowl were prepared for me, and once every 10 days an abundance of all kinds of wine was provided. But I did not demand the food allotted to the governor because the burden on the people was so heavy. Remember me favorably, O my God, for all that I have done for this people." When Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem the Arab, and the rest of our enemies heard that I had rebuilt the wall, and not a gap was left, though to that time I had not yet installed the doors and the gates, Sanballat and Geshem sent me this message: "Come, let us meet together in one of the villages in the plain of Ono." But they were planning to harm me. So I sent messengers to them, saying, "I am doing a great work and cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it to go down to you?" 4 times they sent me the same message, and each time I gave the same reply. The 5th time Sanballat sent me this same message by his young servant, who had in his hand an unsealed letter that read, "It is reported among the nations, and Geshem agrees, that you and the Jews are plotting to revolt, and this is why you are rebuilding the wall. According to these reports, you are to become their king, and you have even appointed prophets in Jerusalem to proclaim on your behalf, 'There is a king in Judah.' Soon these rumors will reach the ears of the king. So come, let us confer together." Then I sent him this reply, "There is nothing to these rumors you are spreading. You are inventing them in your own mind." For they were all trying to frighten us, saying, "Their hands will be weakened in the work, and it will never be finished." But now, my God, strengthen my hands. Later I went to the house of Shemaiah, son of Delaiah, the son of Mehetabel, who was confined to his house. He said, "Let us meet at the house of God inside the temple. Let us shut the temple doors, because they are coming to kill you. By night they are coming to kill you." But I replied, "Should a man like me run away? Should one like me go into the temple to save his own life? I will not go." I realized that God had not sent him, but that he had uttered this prophecy against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. He had been hired to intimidate me so that I would sin by doing as he suggested, so they could give me a bad name in order to discredit me. Oh my God, remember Tobiah and Sanballat for what they have done, and also Noadiah the prophetess and the other prophets who tried to intimidate me. So the wall was completed in 52 days, on the 25th of Elul. When all our enemies heard about this, all the surrounding nations were afraid and disheartened, for they realized that this task had been accomplished by our God. Also in those days, the nobles of Judah sent many letters to Tobiah, and Tobiah's letters came back to them. For many in Judah were bound by oath to him, since he was a son-in-law of Shechaniah son of Ara, and his son Jehohanan had married the daughter of Meshullam son of Berechiah. Moreover, these nobles kept reporting to me Tobiah's good deeds, and they relayed my words to him. And Tobiah sent letters to intimidate me. Now let's read Psalm 98. A Psalm. Sing to the Lord a new song, for he has done wonders. His right hand and holy arm have gained him the victory. The Lord has proclaimed his salvation and revealed his righteousness to the nations. He has remembered his love and faithfulness to the house of Israel. All the ends of the earth have seen the salvation of our God. Make a joyful noise to the Lord, all the earth. Break forth, let your cry ring out, and sing praises. Sing praises to the Lord with the lyre, in melodious song with the harp, with trumpets and the blast of the ram's horn. Shout for joy before the Lord, the King. Let the sea resound and all that fills it, the world and all who dwell in it. Let the rivers clap their hands. Let the mountains sing together for joy before the Lord, for he comes to judge the earth. He will judge the world with righteousness and the peoples with equity. And now to the New Testament in Revelation chapter 6. Last time in Revelation in chapter 5, we saw that John was there in heaven, where he had been taken in chapter 4 in the vision. He had seen God on his throne with everyone bowing to him and worshiping him, the 4 living creatures around the throne, the 24 elders around him, and then around them, all these angels. But we then see in chapter 5, last time, that there was a scroll in God's hand, and nobody was found worthy anywhere who was worthy to open the scroll. It had 7 seals on it. And John was very upset and sad that nobody was worthy to open this. But then they said, "No, don't weep. There is someone who has been found, and that's Jesus. He calls him the Lion of Judah, and he looked like a lamb that had been slain. And everybody praises him just as they praised God. They fall down before him. Every creature falls down before Jesus and worships him because he is also God and is worthy of worship. And in his case, it's not only that he's the creator, but that he is the savior. He's the one who died in order to save man. All right, well, let's go ahead and get into the reading today in Revelation chapter 6. Then I watched as the Lamb opened one of the 7 seals, and I heard one of the 4 living creatures say in a thunderous voice, "Come!" So I looked and saw a white horse, and its rider held a bow, and he was given a crown, and he rode out to overcome and conquer. And when the Lamb opened the 2nd seal, I heard the 2nd living creature say, "Come!" Then another horse went forth. It was bright red, and its rider was granted permission to take away peace from the earth and make men slay one another. And he was given a great sword. And when the Lamb opened the 3rd seal, I heard the 3rd living creature say, "Come!" Then I looked and saw a black horse, and its rider held in his hand a pair of scales. And I heard what sounded like a voice from among the 4 living creatures saying, "A quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and wine." And when the Lamb opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4th living creature say, "Come!" Then I looked and saw a pale green horse. Its rider's name was Death, and Hades followed close behind. And they were given authority over a 4th of the earth to kill by sword, by famine, by plague, and by the beasts of the earth. And when the Lamb opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony they had upheld. And they cried out in a loud voice, "How long, O Lord, holy and true, until you avenge our blood and judge those who dwell upon the earth?" Then each of them was given a white robe and told to rest a little while longer until the full number of their fellow servants, their brothers, were killed, just as they had been killed. And when I saw the Lamb open the 6th seal, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black like sackcloth of goat hair, and the whole moon turned blood red. And the stars of the sky fell to the earth like unripe figs dropping from a tree shaken by a great wind. The sky receded like a scroll being rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved from its place. Then the kings of the earth, the nobles, the commanders, the rich, the mighty, and every slave and free man hid in the caves and among the rocks of the mountains. And they said to the mountains and the rocks, "Fall on us and hide us from the face of the one seated on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of their wrath has come, and who is able to withstand it?" All right, in our reading today in the book of Nehemiah, we saw them continuing to build, and they got things built up halfway, and then the enemies of the Jews, especially Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem, they were trying to give them trouble. First, they ridiculed them, trying to discourage them from doing this. And we see that they did have trouble with what they were doing. There was a lot of rubble. They were being discouraged, but they kept on. And Nehemiah showed really strong leadership in continuing to encourage them and get them to finish. As they saw that they were not going to discourage them, they started thinking they would attack them, the enemies did. And that was a real threat. They intended to attack, but because the Jews knew that they were coming, they managed to always be prepared. And so they were not attacked because the attack would have failed, and that was clear. So it made their work a lot harder, but it also kept them safe until they could get the wall up. But then they also had internal problems from their fellow Jews who were greedy and were taking usury from their poor brethren. And they were even selling some of them into slavery. And Nehemiah spoke to them about how foolish this is when they're having to buy back these people who are slaves. How can you sell them into slavery just so that we have to buy them back? That does not make any sense. And they had no reply to that because it doesn't make any sense. So he made them swear not to do this, to give them back what they had taken, and to help them out. And so they did do that. Then the enemies also tried to go after Nehemiah personally. First, they tried to get him to come out, and he refused. He knew what was going on. They wanted to harm him, but he would not go out. And then they hired these false prophets among the Jews to try to get him to sin. This one tried to get him to go into the temple to save his life, which he's not a priest. He has no right to be in the temple. And so he realized that that's not what he should do. And then later on, he realized, oh, this was something that they hired him to do. And there were other false prophets and prophetesses that they had hired as well. Sadly, many of the Jews were on the side of the enemy of the Jews. They had bound themselves with an oath to him because of who he was related to through marriage, especially Tobiah. And so this was a terrible thing. They were kind of spies for Tobiah, and they would speak good things about Tobiah to Nehemiah. And then Tobiah was intimidating Nehemiah. But Nehemiah had faith in God, and that kept coming up over and over again, that it was God who was giving them success. And he said even their enemies realized that, and it made them afraid. Then in Psalm 98, we see a psalm of praise to God because of his salvation, his righteousness that he has revealed, and how he has blessed his people. So we could see that applying to this return and the success of the Jews in what they are accomplishing there in rebuilding the walls. But he also talks about him coming to judge the earth, and he's going to judge the world with righteousness and the people with equity. That applies to what we read in Revelation as well. What we're seeing in Revelation 6 is very similar to what we saw in the book of Zechariah, where there were these writers who said that there's peace on the earth, and yet that's not a good thing. God needs to bring justice for what has been done to his people. Well, now the people are different. It's not the Jews, it is the Christians. But you have these writers going out to bring what is not peace on the earth. You have the leader, it seems, going out on the white horse. He has a crown. He's overcoming and conquering. I believe that's a picture of Jesus. We have a similar picture later on in the book that is clearly Jesus. And we also see war going out on the red horse. He's taking away peace so that they will fight one another. We see the black horse, which is famine. He has the scales and he's measuring the food. We have also the pale green horse, and that's death and Hades there. And they're killing a fourth of the earth through sword, famine, plague, and the beast of the earth, which is essentially the same things that God used against Israel when he was bringing judgment against them. Then we find these souls of those who had been slain for their testimony about the word of God, their faithfulness to the Lord. They were under the altar, which is the picture that their death had been a sacrifice for the Lord or to the Lord. And they are given white robes. And of course, this is the promise Jesus gave in the letters to the churches. But they're told that they need to just wait a while, rest a while. There was others that were going to die in the same persecution that they were killed in. But God would bring justice. He was going to bring judgment and avenge their blood. So they're looking for justice, and God is a God of justice. He brings true judgment. But he knows that there's a timing for his purpose, and so he's not going to do it quite yet. But then we see the judgment coming. And the sun becomes black, the moon's turned to blood, the stars fall, and the sky just is rolled up, and every mountain and island moved from its place. And this sounds a lot like what we might picture the end of the world being like, but this is very similar wording to all the judgments, the major judgments that God prophesied throughout the Old Testament in Matthew 24 and other places as well, where he's talking about judgment on nations or on cities. In this context, he's talking about judgment on those that had persecuted and killed his people, the Christians, the faithful who were killed for the word. And so those that had been persecuting them are now running. And they are, all of these people, whether slave or free, everybody, the rich, the mighty, everybody is hiding. They want to be hidden from the wrath of the Lamb and from the one seated on the throne, from God the Father as well. So the day of their wrath has come. Who is able to withstand it? They're going to bring judgment against those who persecute their people. So you want to be on the side of those who are faithful, even if that means being killed, rather than be facing the wrath of God. And that's kind of the point of the book, that you want to be faithful until death and you'll receive the crown of life. You do not want to be on the other side. Even though now you're suffering and it seems like the others are fine, but that's going to be switched around when the judgment of God comes. All right, well, that is the reading for today. Thank you for joining me, and please join me again tomorrow as we continue on this Berean pursuit.